The release of Stellar Crown is on the horizon, and Limitless TCG has the results from Japanese City League events just in time for us to look at these and get ideas for deck lists for the Stellar Crown format. Today we'll look at first place lists from every archetype that has won a City League so far. This was the first weekend, September 7th and September 8th in Japan, holding the City Leagues. So we'll look at, I believe, 12 archetypes today that have won events so far. Checking out the top 16 metagame breakdown for these events. This is the total meta share of top 16. These events typically have a player cap of 64, so these are the decks placing within the top 25% roughly of the City League events. We see that Raging Bolt is taking up a large portion of these top placing decks, and popularity definitely plays a part of this. Potentially ease of play also plays a part of this, so Raging Bolt isn't super difficult, and remember, these are like League Cups. So Raging Bolt seeing a lot of success means that it's popular, and it also means that it's probably very good. The second most is Charizard EX, so Charizard really coming back into the metagame strong, it seems here. Dragapult EX as well, also coming into the metagame strong after falling off and having a poor showing in North America events. We'll have to see if these results really transpose well into Europe and North America and all the other regions, because Japan sometimes does have metagame differences compared to us. The really surprising thing on this share is that Reggie Drago has fallen to 5% of the top 16 meta share. So Reggie Drago falling off while Dragapult EX is going up. And I compare those two decks because Reggie Drago V-Star can really just boil down to a better Dragapult EX deck in current standard format, copying Dragapult on turn 2 more consistently. But Dragapult EX gets that new Stellar Crystal A-Spec card that lets it attack for only 1 energy in Stellar Crown. So that's going to be a big deal for the deck. And it looks like with the potential fall off of Reggie Drago that's happening, Gardevoir is also a little more successful now. You'll see that Palkia in here on the meta share at 3.6. Those are going to be Palkia, Noctowl, Terapagos decks for the most part. And that is a brand new archetype. You won't really see many new cards and new archetypes today. And remember, keep in mind that this is kind of casual competitive tournaments. These are the first weekend these City Leagues are happening. And also keep in mind that players might not be bringing out their best decks or their brand new ideas, or they might just be looking for some safe finishes with decks they already know how to play. So there's a lot of variables that are going into this. So I know some people might be disappointed when we see that there's not a lot of new decks in today's video, and there's a lot of decks that aren't even using new cards in today's video. But sets are just supposed to be a new addition to formats. One expansion set should really never completely change the game or change what all of the top decks are or look like, because then that would be unhealthy for the game. Everybody would have to go buy the new cards just to play. So keep in mind that this is just the first weekend of results as we look forward through this. And also you'll see at the 3% mark there is Snorlax EX, which is a card that does 20 damage for every energy in the discard pile. We'll bring that up on screen here. That is not in Stellar Crown. And there's also a Terra Orb card that we'll see in a couple deck lists today, I believe, which is an item card that just is a ball card that searches for a Terra Pokemon. That is also not in Stellar Crown. So those are two cards that we'll get later this year in Surging Sparks. Starting out with Raging Bolt EX, which looks to be the most popular and most successful archetype in Japan's current format, at least according to these City League results. This deck list is not going to look too different from anything you're used to, except we've got that new single prize Raging Bolt in the deck, offering its attack that can snipe the bench. And of course, very importantly, is the Briar supporter card. That Briar is going to pair very well with our Teal Mask Ogerpon, which will allow us to take an extra prize card when the opponent's at 2. And this is specifically going to be super good against the Charizard EX matchup, which has historically been a bad matchup for Raging Bolt. This Briar supporter is going to allow us to come back in the prize race, even if we have to knock out a single prizer early in the game. I've seen ideas with the Area Zero Underdepth Stadium in this deck and with Noctowl, and I don't really think that's the best way to play Raging Bolt. It seems interesting. I see the consistency and reliability throughout the game that it can offer to this archetype, but I don't think that's going to be the best way to play it moving forward. This streamlined version is tried and true, and it looks like it's going to be what continues to be the standard for Raging Bolt Teal Mask Ogerpon. Next, we have Charizard EX Pidgeot. Again, the only new card in this list is Briar. Briar is super good card. Really, really impactful card out of the new Stellar Crown set. There is a new ace spec that could be included in Charizard, but for now, this first place deck list is playing Hero's Cape as the ace spec. I actually looked into the split of ace specs that are being played, and thanks to Trainer Hill, they have a tool that lets me look at the split of cards in City League decks. So I have here for you all the split of ace specs that players are using in Zard lists at the City Leagues so far. So you'll see just over 50% of players are using Unfair Stamp. Just under 20% are using Hero's Cape. About 15% are using the new Tree ace spec, which allows you to evolve up from basic to stage 1 and stage 1 to stage 2, and it gets those cards out of the deck for you. So it is a pretty strong stadium card, pretty strong ace spec. And then we have Prime Catcher at around 8% and Maximum Belt at around 4%. And I do think we'll see these three most popular, Unfair Stamp, Hero's Cape, and the Tree. I do think those are going to stay the most popular ace specs, potentially in that order for Charizard. I kind of like Hero's Cape in the current format more than Unfair Stamp. We'll have to see if I agree with that moving into the Stellar Crown format. And then I haven't tested the Tree at all. I've still been doing mostly Baltimore preparation in the current Shrouded Fable format. Next, we have Dragapult Zatu, which was able to take a first place at a City League. And this has that Terra Orb card that I mentioned that will not be released in Stellar Crown. We'll likely get that in Surging Sparks. So for now, if you want to copy this deck list, just replace the Terra Orb with an Ultra Ball, and that should be fine. And yeah, surprisingly, no cards from Stellar Crown in this list. It's a little weird to not see Briar. But maybe without Pidgeot, Briar isn't as good because you can't just get it on the turn you need it. And they're playing Unfair Stamp, of course, over the Crystal because they have Zatu for energy acceleration. But even in previous formats, Japan has seemed to really like the Zatu build of Dragapult, and I just don't get it. I think Pidgeot is way better. So let's take a look at the Dragapult Pidgeot. Here's a first place list for this archetype. And this one is playing Crispin, which is a really good supporter for Dragapult. Search for 2 different basic energies, attach one, put one into your hand. And it's also playing that new Crystal ace spec, Sparkling Crystal, that I've been talking about, which is the really, really big new card for Dragapult EX, in my opinion. This really plunges Dragapult EX into the top tiers of competitive play, and is probably the reason that Reggie Drago is seeing less play now, because you could just use this on Dragapult EX instead. But also note that no Briar in this list, even though Dragapult is a Terra Pokemon and can make use out of that Briar. Next, we have 2 different Lugia V-Star variants that got first place at City League so far. And interestingly enough, they're both playing Klefki. So I'll talk about that first. So if we look at the data from the Trainer Hill analysis, there are 35 Lugia V-Star decks that have been played in City League so far, and 20% of them are playing Klefki. So Klefki looks to be almost common, or at least semi-common in Japanese Lugia lists, and especially in the successful ones, since 2 of the first place lists I found are both playing Klefki. So just wanted to note that real quick. The Klefki might seem a bit odd. I guess it could slow down turbo decks. It can shut off Iron Thorns EX as well. But the Klefki is something I've never seen in a Lugia list before. So in this one, we see that they're building a basic Pokemon approach. The only evolution Pokemon in the deck are Lugia V-Star and, of course, Archeops, which gets cheated into play anyway. And then other than that, they're playing all basic Pokemon. And that does give room for the Fire Energy and the Lightning Energy to go along with Raikou and Radiant Charizard. So you could use those with basic energy, still have the Legacy Energy left over if you couldn't find it for one of them. Also playing the Roseanne's backup to make reuse of that Legacy Energy, even if it's just for the Rainbow Energy effect and not for the one less prize card effect, since that can only happen once per game. And then we also have Lugia Cinccino, playing a 4-2 line of Cinccino, and like I said, also including that Klefki. Take these lists and results with some validity. These are all first place lists that we're looking at today, but again, they are smaller tournaments with less on the line than something like a regional championship. I've talked about Reggie Drago V-Star seeming to fall off either in popularity or power, or potentially both in Japan, but it's still picking up some first places. This is a first place Reggie Drago V-Star list from a City League, and yeah, nothing much to talk about here. All of the cards in this deck are cards that you've seen in Reggie Drago V-Star decks before. There's 0 new cards in it, and that might just be why it's not being played enough. Maybe players just want to get their hands on new archetypes, or they're sick of Reggie Drago V-Star being so good, so they want to play something else. It could also just be, like I've been saying, that Dragapult EX with the Crystal is now just a more efficient option than Reggie Drago V-Star copying Dragapult. Next, we have Roaring Moon EX, very similar to the second place World Champions list, playing a Mist Energy in there, probably to combat Dragapult EX after you Frenzied Gouging. You don't want them to boss up your Pekka and then take a 4-prize turn, so you put a Mist on your Roaring Moon potentially. But Emergency Jelly could also be an option for that, although that does get countered by Jamming Tower, so I guess it depends which is more popular in the meta. Is it Jamming Tower or Sinnoh, and then you tech either Mist or Emergency Jelly potentially for those reasons. But yeah, no new cards again in this Roaring Moon EX deck list. So moving on to the next, which is Ancient Box, which also has no new cards being featured in it. That's why I prefaced this video at the very beginning talking about, you know, don't expect major changes with every new set. And also, there's a lot to explore with this set, guys. The Terrapagos, the Area Zero Underdepths, the Glass Trumpet, Briar. There's a lot of potential with a lot of different stuff. I don't think anybody has even scratched the surface with Stellar Crown, and if they have, it's not really public yet. I know there's a lot of potential for the Dusknoir stuff with big basic like Terrapagos Dusknoir, Terrapagos tanking with the new Bouffalant. So, and we will be looking at more lists and more decks as we move on this week, especially with Stellar Crown releasing very soon. I just wanted to focus on the first place deck lists today, so I'm only showing archetypes that have gotten a first place at these City Leagues so far. Something interesting here is that Monkey Dory to move some damage off of something. So it looks like the Japanese metagame is really respecting Dragapult EX. We're seeing with that Mist Energy and the Roaring Moon and the Monkey Dory in this Ancient Box deck. Looks like they're really respecting that. Also, something interesting is they're playing a full 4 count of Great Tusk, which you don't typically see in Ancient Box decks. Here we have a first place Chien Palbak's Caliber deck list, and there are once again no new cards in it, but they are playing that Ice Cube, which does 160. Notably, it's a fire type. It does 160 for 3 water energy though, and then you discard all energy from this Pokemon, and during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't attack. So I'm not sure if this was something cute that they wanted to play, if it has a really good applicable use. Definitely discuss that in the comments down below if you're a Chien Pal fan, or you're just interested in this Ice Cube EX being a part of the deck. Almost wrapping up here, we've got a Snorlax Stall deck with 2 Cornerstone Ogerpon, and again, no new cards. I don't really want to spend too much time on this. I know this archetype bores a lot of you all. Looks like it can survive in a best of 1 format in Japan, so that's something for anybody who likes Snorlax Stall. But we'll move on to the last deck list in today's video, which is going to be Gavar EX. Like I said, Gardevoir EX looks like it might be picking back up in popularity and also viability in the Japanese metagame. And unfortunately, we have another deck list here with no new cards to show off, but at least giving you all good baseline deck lists, what is succeeding, and how to build these decks. It's very, very important to be testing the decks that you're making for the new set against the already good decks. You don't want to test new decks against new decks. That's not really going to give you great results. So this is good. Even if you're interested in all the new stuff, you know what it has to beat now. These are the best performing decks so far in Japan. So thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe for more content if you enjoyed this and you want to see even more Pokemon TCG content. You can find ways to support my channel in the description down below, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.